For centuries, we know misogyny has upheld the primary status of men in a sense of male entitlement while subordinating women and limiting their powers and freedom. I think it's important to take that extract from the report, that it's beyond hatred. It's also about undermining women's position in society by belittling them and calling them names and the use of language. I do highlight again the cruel murders of Sarah Everard, Sabina Nessa and Nicole Smallman, because they do remind us that in those cases we know that men set out specifically to murder women. It was a mindset, unfortunately, where there's hatred obviously involved in those crimes. What is striking about Baroness Helena Kennedy's report is the size and the scale of the problem. And I think the working group illustrates really well, and I think excellent language to illustrate what we're trying to achieve here. When I'm looking at the recommendations, as the Cabinet Secretary says, looking at gendered law, particularly intended to protect women and girls. And I think that would be hugely significant if we could get to that point, because the law prefers to operate on the basis of neutrality in most cases, meaning most laws would be available to men and women as well. But this would be a law specifically aimed at this. So we wholeheartedly welcome that. According to Baroness Kennedy, it disguises the reality that there are particular kinds of behaviour which target women for simply existing as women. We might assume that society is becoming more progressive towards gender equality. But I highlight this new research, which is only one, but I think it's worth highlighting, the Ipsos UK and Global Institute for Women's Leadership at King's College London. So the majority of young people in Britain now believe that women's rights have gone too far. Some 52% of Generation Z and 53% of millennials said that society has gone so far in promoting women's rights that it is discriminating against men. To be honest, I think I've actually heard that a few times in my lifetime. I'm just sad to read it now, but it does illustrate, I think, the extent to which I'm sure Christina McKelvey and someone will make this point as well, that it isn't just about the law. We need to go a long way in changing attitudes before we can make any real progress. So as I've said in previous debates, it's also really important to include the gaps in the law on gender-based crime, particularly in cybercrime, is really important. Certain men have been unscrupulous, using methods to lure boys and young men only to instil them in shocking attitudes towards women is quite appalling. In schools, we know there is sexist bullying, sexual harassment, all very much underreported and being normalised in everyday occurrences, often positioned as a joke and therefore not often reported. So we're all responsible for calling that out, sexist attitudes, condemning misogynistic behaviour in our daily life. And as we've said before in this Parliament, it's especially up to men to reflect and change their behaviour. And I do welcome the approach that the Cabinet Secretary took to this. You know, if you're not really living a real life if you haven't heard this in your own personal circles. I just want to conclude, and I think some of the important points that Jamie Green has made in this. I want to make it clear the Scottish Labour is totally up for working with the government on this important piece of legislation. I think it will be quite intricate in achieving 4 or 5 big recommendations. So the non-legal definition of misogyny for the purposes of the report was helpful, but our job is to make sure that we turn that into legislative framework that's workable. If done properly, it will be one of the few laws around the world that is written primarily by women, for women, so it would be a huge achievement and would be a huge step towards achieving gender justice. All I can do, including presiding officer, is to say that I think this is the heart of the matter, to make sure the detail of it is something that will stand up, it will be respected, it will be seen by the legal profession and those who have to work it as being useful and helpful, and that it's a clear provision that can be used in our courts to protect women and girls. Thank you very much.